your tuition fees. My job here is not to try to convince you either way. My job here is to provide you the information that will allow you to make a decision. So I am not a campaigner. Officially, I'm not a campaigner because UMES has to require that campaigners actually register. And so I'm here to answer your questions and to provide information. And that's, I'll try very hard to do that. First thing I want to do is I want to tell you about the budget situation, where the money comes from or where the money goes, so you can see where our problems arise. This is a listing of the incomes to the faculty in the year 2006-2007. So what we've got is we have an opening baseline. This is money you get from central administration. This is money you get from central administration. We have about $11.5 million in a baseline transfer. We then get salary increases. They come from central. We have to find them ourselves instead of finding them. SIP is new faculty positions. Then tuition, your tuition you pay comes to us two ways. Part of it comes through baseline, and part of it comes through a cash transfer. Then we've got three items on here: these non-salary benefits, startup funds, and net transfers are money that comes into the faculty, but then it goes out of the faculty immediately to be paid for special needs, special requirements. CRC is again some money for a chair professorship. Last year we were given $50,000 extra in budget opening money to help us deal with some of our problems, and we have about $6,000 in overhead. What this basically comes down to is central administration gives us about $12.75 million to run the faculty. Now this is what it costs to run the faculty. So there's $12.78 million. And what this column is basically a running remainder. So every time we have a column here, we subtract from the remainder. We pay about $7 million in faculty salaries, that's no props. We pay about $3 million in support staff salaries, about $600,000 in teaching assistants, that's the TAs and your lab instructors. And that was severely cut this year. Staff benefits is about $1.5 million. So by the time we spend our salary, pay for our salaries and our overhead, we're down to about $600,000 left. So roughly over 90% just goes to salaries. These are those transfer things that came in and out, so we won't talk about them. We spent $375,000 last year on equipment, and that was a commitment that we made over the next 3 years to spend $1 million to upgrade our lab. So by the time we paid for the equipment and these startup funds and the net transfers, the faculty was in a deficit position. So before we've done anything, like, for example, put in telephones and copying machines, we were already in a deficit position. Available to the faculty, and this is what sometimes people get confused. The faculty actually have a total operating budget of about $28 million, not $12 million. Because we have other sources of money. For example, we've got about $14 million comes in for externally funded research projects. These are our insert grants and money from Manitoba Hydro to research. This basically supports our graduate program. But this money here is very sacred money. The dean cannot touch that money because that money comes from government sources. The second I did anything by trying to take that money away or use it for other purposes, we're in trouble with the government. This money over here is also special money. That's money that originated in my operating account, but it was given to professors for specific purposes. A big piece of that is startup money. Every new professor who comes is given $50,000 to start the research program. And that money is given to the professor, and then it's their money. The difficulty is that it sits in an account that looks like it's my money. So technically, if I want to, I can spend my professor's money. But of course, that's a very slippery slope. We'll talk a little bit about that. So if we look at all these amounts here, this $1.8 million, these are the kinds of money that sit in my accounts. It looks like I control the money, but it actually belongs to somebody else. So it's not my money to spend. And this individual allocation is money basically that I've given to professors for various purposes, and I shouldn't be taking that. And these are things like startup money, overhead money from our various projects that they've done, and various other sources. That's about $1 million. The difficulty in our budget is this. These two sets of money, these individual allocations I talked about, And income-funded money is the money that comes in to help support specific laboratories. I can run a $1.25 million deficit, and to the outside world it looks like I'm breaking even. But the difficulty is that that this money here is not money I should be spending. And we're in a situation now is where basically the only way we can balance our budget is by spending this money which does not belong to the dean, it belongs to academics, which of course gets us into real problems for academics. We'll talk a little bit about that. This is the history of our deficit. The Faculty of Engineering has been in a deficit position since the year 2000. Okay? What happened was, basically we used to have a real carryover, a real cash. And over the years, that has been the way to basically provide our labs, to provide our TAs, to provide everything else. And we've basically been quite a linear function here of increasing debt until the year 2006. We were about $1.5 million in the hole. Until last year, Central Administration, we worked very closely with Central Administration. Central Administration basically allowed us to accumulate this debt because we really had no choice. By the time we pay our salaries, we're out of money. And Central's been very accommodating and allow us to basically run the debt. The difficulty is that every year the finances of the university become more and more difficult. This year, they can't afford to basically allow us to run any more deficits. So they've told us that we have to basically live within our means. That basically means because we can't live within our means, because it's impossible to run the faculty on the money we've got, I'm in a position where I've basically got to look at grading my professor's money to balance our books. So that's the situation we're in. Now, a lot of people said Central Administration isn't being nice to us. They're being extremely nice to us because they actually wrote this debt off. We no longer owe them $1.5 million. We owe them $0 until the end of the year when we'll owe them some money because we started building a deficit again. So they wrote off our accumulated deficit, but of course that didn't solve our problem. We've got a structural deficit in our budget.